Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and this is the first of our end of 2018 award videos. I realise that we're now in January. I realise that we're a little bit later this year doing this. That's okay. It means we've put more thought into it. It means that more time has been into, deliberating over the crucial decisions of who belongs in what category, of what the top 10s are going to be. This particular episode, this is going to be our general awards. We're going to do actor and actresses. We're going to give it an award for best music and best cinematography, and just a couple of general topics just to kind of round out the year and the best and worst of sort of things that happened this year. Also coming up throughout the week, you're going to get top 5 new shows of 2018. That's normally top 10. We'll explain in that episode why it's less than normal. You're going to get your best top 10 single episodes of 2018, and then the final award show for TV will be our top 10 shows of 2018. So that's what's coming up this week. The first one, though, is the general awards, and this one's a little bit different. It's not a top list. It's basically, we'll have a category. We've decided on 4 or 5 nominations for each. We'll discuss those options and then pick a winner as a team for each one. That's what we do. Did I say you were Connor? I think I did. I did.
You
that
did.
At the start. Good.
I don't really like being referred to as a team. I don't think that suits us.
Okay, as a show, as
a unit,
as the pair that makes up Almost Cancelled.
Yeah. See, I'm more accepting of that. I don't like the idea of being on a team with you.
Nor are you.
Well, you said it, so.
It was the first word that came to mind. Shut up. Shut up. Oh dear, and there's chaos on Twitter because I said I hate eggs and they're disgusting. Let's move on. So we have awards to do. 2018's been an interesting year. It's been a year, and this is partly why there's less of the new shows and the new best of lists, but it's been a year, I think, of great returning shows rather than a lot of great new shows. But we're going to talk about things. So we're going with the same order we went with last year, more or less. We're going to start off with supporting actor, and we have. Well, we actually have 6 written down for this. I feel like we were meant to cut one of these, but it doesn't matter. We're here now. We have 6.
Yeah, I think we were meant to cut one and we just forgot.
Yeah, and then clearly.
Yeah. You know, all that thought and preparation that went into this.
It happened.
It
happened. I swear it happened. So supporting actor, we have a bunch of options here. We have Zan McClarnon from Westworld. What's this character's name again? I feel this is really bad.
Like Akeshita? I can never remember how to say it.
Akeshita, yeah, I think it was that. He was a Native American character in Westworld season 2, and he was kind of a standout character because, he was a background sort of individual for a lot of the season, but he got one sort of focused episode to really delve into his past and what his importance in the story was. And the entire episode was almost told in, I said entire, it was majority of the episode was told in another language, a native language, which, if I remember correctly, only 3 digits of people still speak this, I believe.
Yeah, I remember. It was a very small amount.
Yeah. Cat's already interfering with things.
There's a shambles already.
Chef Cat, I've got a best of the year awards.
We forgot to cut down one of these actors. Now there's cats. I mean, what are we even doing?
But no, it was a great standalone episode focusing on him, and he carries the episode. He's an actor who, we liked him on Fargo season 2 when he was on that. He's popped up in a few things here or there.
Yeah.
But he carries this entire episode. He carries it in a different language, and he does it with grace. He does it in a way where it's a character who, like a lot of characters on Westworld, don't necessarily always have agency over who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's part of the beauty of the performance, is that he kind of becomes self-aware over the course of the episode.
Yeah, and the idea of it being, it was quite an emotional performance, and doing that in a language that you don't speak. It's not your first language. It's one that you're not fluent in really at all. To pull off a performance like this, I mean, I know. You can think of examples of actors now doing this in short bursts all the time, but this was, a full hour of this.
Do we know for sure he didn't speak that language? Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I think he grew up hearing. I think his grandparents might have spoken
Okay,
it,
right.
if I recall, but it wasn't something he was, fluent in. I know they had to get a coach in and go through the language with him.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so great effort from him for that. Next up, we got Justin Theroux. These are in no particular order, by the way. They were kind of I think last year I made the effort to put them in alphabetical order, so there was no favoritism. This year it's just any which way. This is not a sign of who's higher than other someone else.
Yeah,
Because obviously Zan didn't come first alphabetically. I mean, you go with the last name usually still, but you know.
yeah, yeah. But there's A's and B's coming up, so
Exactly. So next up, Justin Theroux from Maniac. He plays the crazy scientist, essentially. I'd say neurotic scientist, and a bigger part of the show, perhaps, than I was kind of expecting, maybe given the trailers.
yeah. It didn't seem like he was gonna be much, but then he got entire episodes dedicated to him. He had entire, big subplots.
Him and his mummy problems were actually kind of the crux of a lot of the show, in
It
a lot of
was, yeah,
ways. Yeah, and his relationship with the artificial intelligence that was running the lab.
yes.
Uh,
Very interesting stuff.
yes, which was notably uh, almost his mother's name. Because we got really confused at one point trying to remember if the computer was called Gertie or Greta, I believe was the two names. And it was because one was the computer's name and one was the mother's name. That was
It
that
tripped
was
us up until we were like, oh,
which was very intentional, of course.
yeah.
But it is what it is. But he's very sort of quirky in that role. He's very
It's a very energetic performance.
yes. Lot of tics, lot of like he's got OCD. He doesn't like he's got a lot
Yeah,
of body language going on. It was an entertaining performance, if nothing else. It may not be the most dramatic, in-depth performance we're going to talk about, but it was definitely an entertaining performance.
yeah, definitely.
So next up we have Jared Abrahamson from Travelers. A lot of good cast members on that show. He stuck out just a little bit more. He plays Trevor, and he's a character who is much older than he actually is. He's still a teenager. Maybe he's just grown out of that in
Yeah,
the show.
I'd say 20.
Yeah. Well, he was still in school in season one. If it's been a year in the show, he should be
All right,
19 at
19,
most.
20.
Yeah. But he's actually, because of the way the show works, where they're traveling from body to body from the future, he's actually one of the oldest human beings that have ever lived because he's traveled through multiple bodies, and he kind of has this grace about him. He's always had this. He's always had this in all the seasons of the show. He's had this grace about him, where he genuinely comes off as the oldest person in the room, regardless
Oh
of
yeah,
who's in the room with.
yeah, definitely.
It's very impressive, but I think this season he got a bit more to do in terms of just raw emotion. Some
Yeah,
personal stuff came up, and he was able to really delve into that.
yeah. All the stuff with his past. There's one episode in particular, and the way he plays off a certain other character in this current time.
Yeah,
All of it was fantastic.
yeah, and even just the character has some interesting decisions that he makes in that particular episode, and then how he reacts to what the others do against his wishes also
Yeah.
plays into kind of like just it's very impressive because you feel like grandfather's disappointed in you at the end of the episode. And again, it's this kid who's maybe 20, the actor. I don't know what age he is, but
Yeah, but the implication is he is centuries old.
yeah,
It's never said, but it's clearly old, is what we're getting at.
yeah. And it's been convincing the entire show. And it's notable that this year, part of the reason why it kind of get pushed a little bit later is we actually could finish Travelers season 3 before the awards this year, because the last 2 years we've had to kind of just ignore it because it usually lands right in the middle of us doing the awards. But it came a little bit earlier, so we just had to push it just a little bit so we could finish it first.
It was worth it.
Yes. So maybe not the last you've heard of Travelers in general, but not necessarily in this video though, as we got other awards to come. So next up, Jonathan Banks, a mainstay on the
Yeah.
supporting actor list.
I feel like he's been nominated every year we've been doing this.
Well, it's only actually the second year we've done this particular thing.
Well, then he's been nominated every year we've been doing this.
True, yes.
Confident.
Although someone's going to go back to last year and like find out that we didn't somehow. I'm sure
Well,
we
if
did.
we didn't, then someone should give
We're
past
fools.
us a slap.
Yes. He plays Mike on Better Call Saul. He's been phenomenal in that. He's been phenomenal in Breaking Bad. This year, he had. I mean, he's kind of always had this on Saul, but this year especially, it felt like a very separate plot. It felt like, other than one meeting with Saul, he was on his own plot the entire season, and what he's doing is playing into some of the setting up the world of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
But it's essentially the season that breaks him as a character. So we get him because Mike as a character has always been very confident. He's always very sure of himself, and we see him kind of tested by his new allegiances. You see him tested by the world that he is now becoming a part of, and it crosses a line. He's arguably already broken bad throughout the show.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the line where he becomes one of the villains. Still sympathetic, but
well, also I think this is the first time, probably ever, for Mike as a character that he got a friendship. And that added an extra layer to a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So by the end of the season, he ultimately, he gets emotional in a way that, one of the best episodes of the entire show is still season 1's episode where he gets emotional talking about his son.
Yeah.
And part of that is not only is he really good at it, but it's a rare sight. It doesn't happen often because the character doesn't call for it often. But when the time comes out, and this was a very stoic emotion because he doesn't like what he's doing, but he's fighting through it and trying to keep a straight face. Whereas, when he's talking about his son, he breaks down. He's talking to his daughter-in-law, he's breaking down in tears. That season 1 episode. So it's a phenomenal performance. He's going to be tough to beat, but we'll see what we can do. Next up, we got Benga Akinabe, which we looked up the pronunciation, so hopefully that was close. This is the actor who plays Larry Brown on The Deuce, who stood out for us this year. His comic chops were above par.
Utterly delightful and so unexpected from the first season where this was going.
Yeah.
Would never, he was fine in the first season. He was a kind of a smaller part anyway, but he was fine. But this year he stood out and made every scene his own.
This year, I mean, obviously his character got to do more, but it really let him display a character who starts off as a pimp and then realizes that he's evolving and that he's more than that, and that he can be something else, something better. That even he as a pimp is kind of trapped in the trappings of the system that he's in.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting story. He despite who he is and what he's done, he's still sympathetic, and like we say, he's very funny, he's very charming. He was cracking us up all season. He's very good.
Oh yeah, it's great stuff.
Very good. So, and then the final one we've got here is Jeffrey Wright from Westworld.
Yeah.
Who no doubt would have been nominated in the first season had we done this particular,
without a doubt,
categories. So Westworld got 2. Look at that. That's actually.
Yeah,
notable.
I feel like if we'd actually remembered to cut someone,
we'd have cut one of the 2 Westworld actors.
Probably would have been one of the Westworld. I mean, and like some of our videos, like the episodes video, is we decide no, each show only gets 1 episode. That's not a strict rule on this. We can have multiple actors in the same category from the same show if we feel necessary.
Yeah, if we see fit, that's the right thing to do. But Jeffrey Wright, it kind of falls into a lot of territory that McLaren does as well, actually, and that he's playing a similar type of character in many ways.
Yeah.
But he's one who has maybe more agency than, especially this season, he had more agency. And it was kind of a self-discovery. It was a question of what was real, what wasn't, what's morally right, what isn't, that kind of stuff.
And there are some conversations that I can't even say who they're with for the sake of spoilers. That stand out as just phenomenal stuff and a cut above the rest of what he's doing, even though the rest of what he's doing is still excellent.
Yeah, I mean, we left out Ed Harris, which I feel like would be the next person to mention if we were going to go down the list of actors.
Yeah, but we thought no, let's stop there.
Yeah, supporting actors specifically. Obviously, we'll get to the actresses and whatnot, but yeah, so that's the options. That is the 6 that we've got here. Should have been 5, but it's 6. Do you know what's funny? I think it's between 2.
I do as well, and I'm really intrigued as to which 2 you think.
Okay, one's Jonathan Banks. We're agreeing on that.
Yeah.
Which means if the other names we say don't match, then Jonathan Banks wins.
Okay, who wants to go first?
You go first.
Okay. My other one was Jared Abrahamson.
He'd be my third.
Okay.
I was thinking Benga. For completely different reasons. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what I like about this option, though, why I was kind of arguing in my head between him and Jonathan Banks, is that it's a completely different performance.
It
Not
is.
that Abramson is not different as well, because it is, but it's so different. It's so on the opposite end of the scale.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And obviously the fact that any of these are here, they're
Yeah,
all fantastic performances and worthy of winning this.
yeah.
Um, I think, like I say, we came up with different names, so ultimately Banks is going to take it because that's the one we agreed
And it
was
doesn't feel
an
wrong.
option.
It doesn't feel like we're just handing it to him by default. It feels no, he earned it this year.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think you could have argued that he shouldn't have won it in season two. Maybe we did get. I can't remember who won season two, who last year, but or season three that would have been. Like you could
Yeah,
argue to me that you could argue me that he shouldn't have won for seasons two and three, but I think one and four,
yeah, definitely.
he's the supporting actor of those years. Outside of the fact that I'm maybe misremembering something that was on the same year as Saul season one that maybe did give us a compelling argument, but
Maybe, yeah. Because I think last year we might have given it to McKean.
we may have done actually. Yeah, we may have done. Which fair play, he was still in scenes. He was still in the show last year.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that he always does. One of the reasons why he's a staple of one of the always going to be mentioned in this category as long as Saul's on there, is that he has so many scenes where he has no dialogue and he's just Mike will have a plan and he'll start doing things and we just kind of suss what he's doing out as the plan unfolds.
it's so confidently executed
Yeah,
though.
and a lot of obviously some of it is in the camera work and the pacing, but a lot of it is his performance, and you can see him thinking. You can see the gears in his head
Yeah,
moving as he's figuring things out, and that's all in the acting. It's phenomenal.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
and then you add in the emotional side that we talked about that you got to do this season. Uh, there you go, Jonathan Banks, best supporting actor of 2018.
There you go. As the first fuzzy has been handed out.
The first fuzzy's handed out. Um, I kind of want to change it.
Oh, for God's sake, what now?
No, 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 not the winner.
Oh, the name.
The name.
Okay.
I feel like from this moment forth, it is now the Bebo.
I'll allow it.
The first Bebo of 2018 has been given out.
I'm
Um,
I'm I'm gonna let it slide.
Also, here's a disclaimer we should have probably mentioned at the start: is that obviously this is all based on the shows we watched. We can't give out awards for shows we didn't. There'll be a couple of these where I'll maybe mention an honourable thing that maybe I just watched on my own. That it's weird not to mention them, but ultimately, if we're picking a winner together, it has to be something that we've both seen and can judge on.
Yeah.
So those are the rules. So if it feels like stuff's missing out, it's just because we didn't see those shows, or at least one of us didn't. Which takes us on to supporting actress. We have 5 options here. We have, going back to Westworld, we have Thandie Newton, who, I think she was good in season 1, but she was definitely maybe outshone by
Evan Rachel Wood.
Evan Rachel Wood. I think this season, though, Thandie Newton got to shine more.
Definitely.
She got some of the more emotional beats. The story that had been teased in season 1, she finally got to unfold a lot of that. She also got to have a very strong kind of presence. Like everything that had been building up again in season 1 gave her this powerful position in season 2.
Yeah, I think Evan Rachel Wood, she suffers a little bit from her characters not being given as much to do in that she's just on a very straight line.
Yeah, her arc happened in season 1. Season 2, she is just kind of like she's fine, but they kind of give her almost too much filler in the middle, and it feels like she sags a little bit because of that.
Yeah. Whereas Thandie Newton on the other hand is like, no, 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 this is her time to shine. This is her art.
Even
Her.
even the worst episode of the season, she gets the best moments. She gets the best character stuff.
Which episode do you think's the worst?
Probably the one in Japanese Town. As much as we liked a lot
Oh
of what it did, it was definitely the slowest one.
no, it's not the worst episode. That's like my second favorite.
Oh no, I can disagree with that. Clearly, that's not going to be on the best episode list because we've disagreed with that.
Yeah.
Second favorite? No, we had 2 options for the favorite, and that was not.
Okay, third favorite.
Yeah, there's no way that's the second favorite either. There's 2 clear winners, I think, that season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got Thandie Newton, had a lot to do. Again, good range of strong but emotional at different places. Really good stuff. Got a
Yeah.
chance to. Next up, Yvonne Strahovski from The Handmaid's Tale, who again got a lot more to do in season 2. Like season 1, she was very good, but she was very one note and kind of evil the whole time, essentially.
Yeah.
This season, it tried to do the impossible and took someone who we were, and when I say we, I don't mean us two specifically. I mean like the audience in general were basically rooting for her head on a pike. Like that is basically how you feel about her.
And they brought her right up to the brink of, are we on her side?
And then it gets snatched away, and then you
It nearly does it again.
yeah, like it does this thing where you think I can never find any redemption in her. She's went too far, and then it almost does it, and it's in this really neat way where you definitely think of her as better, but you can't necessarily forgive her for what she's done either. Like she's crossed too many lines that you can't just think of her as good. You can't think of her as anything else than what she is, but you can accept that she's learned something.
Yeah, but just the idea that Yvonne Strahovski can convince us,
yeah,
that maybe there was a chance for any level of redemption.
There is a chance she has a soul.
Yeah, the fact that she can convince us of that after the atrocities she's committed.
Well, just to make a parallel to the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer for a second, if Serena Joy is her Angelus, then is Serenity her angel?
I'm not standing for this bullshit.
I'm just saying, she's getting her soul back. She was great though.
She was great.
There was the ups and the downs. There was this other character, Eden, this year, who was this sort of younger, almost the idealized teenage girl in this world of Gilead, and how she would react around her, and then react to how that story ends up. Like she goes through the turmoil of emotions, and then there's a great episode where her and the commander visit Canada, outside of Gilead, yes. And we see how people treat her there, and maybe because one of the things that we joked about a lot in the show is how she's kind of like Joe from Arrested Development, where maybe she's thinking she's made a huge mistake helping set up this world, and
then you just see her double down.
Yeah, and I think part of it really is sunk cost fallacy. It's like she can't admit to herself that she's ruined everything, and she has to just try and keep pushing it harder and harder. Like, no, we did the right thing.
Yeah, she's definitely in denial.
Yes. So that's Yvonne Strahovski. We can't not mention Rhea Seehorn from Breaking Bad. Or sorry, Freudian slip. Better Call Saul. I think it's a fair mistake though. Who, there was a debate between us here. Well, not she should be in. Not supporting, but in lead actress. There was a debate to be had there.
There was.
And ultimately, the thing that decided it was just so that we had so many Best Actress potentials that we thought, we can free up a slot by putting Rhea in and supporting.
Yeah, and I think ultimately what it came down for me in terms of the argument that I made, because we didn't want to just make it arbitrary, she can go here, is ultimately the story is not hers, not really at any
Saul's,
point.
Yeah.
It's always Saul's story. She's always in service. She has her own plots, don't get me wrong.
Probably more
and she has
than
her
ever.
own character, more than ever.
Yeah, more than she ever has done, actually.
But it's always parallel to Saul.
And I'd actually debate that for a good chunk of the season, she maybe steals the show a little bit, where she has some of the better plots this season.
I would agree, yeah.
Up until a certain point. I think Saul comes back in and swips it. Oh, I mean, he doesn't really swip it because she's a big part of what makes his so good towards the end. So I mean, it's much more. It comes in and makes it equal again, as opposed to swipping it. But
it's something that I'm sure we said last year is that she's the heart of the show.
Yeah, she is, absolutely.
And that hasn't changed.
Yeah,
she's still carrying that, on her own entirely.
And a big part of that, and what makes that so effective, is that when Jimmy, shall we say, slips and does something wrong, because you're always rooting. Because the great thing about that show is you're always rooting for Jimmy to do the right thing, and you know that ultimately he's not going to, because at least in Breaking Bad, Rhea Seehorn has to convey the emotions that we feel, and the shock in her face at certain moments, or the surprise in her face at certain moments, it represents us, and she carries that on her back so effortlessly.
Yeah.
She represents us in that we hope he can be better, but deep down we know he can't. Or we're worried that he can't. I mean, we know because we're on the outside. We know it's a prequel to another TV show. I think had the other show not existed, we'd be almost exactly in her shoes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's kind of what makes it work so beautifully. And very understated. Saul has understated performances across the board, very subtle, and that's what makes it so great in many ways. Next up, Mackenzie Porter from Travelers. We were debating. It's hard with these ensemble shows because there was other ensemble shows we looked at and like, oh, should we pick someone from Shield? Should we pick someone from this, that? And I think there's a couple of episodes towards the end of Travelers season 3 that just nudged it to Mackenzie Porter.
Yeah, she's very consistent throughout the season. She's
Yeah.
always good. But when she let her emotions out, oh man.
It's funny because it's one of the things we said about Rhea Seehorn is that her character is kind of the heart of the show. And this in Travelers she shares it with another character. There's like kind of a pair that make the heart of the show. But the emotion that comes out, it comes out after a lot of build up and a lot of
there's a speech she gives
mm.
in towards the end of one of the episodes, towards the end of the season, that might be the best moment of the season.
It might be. It might be because it calls into question the ideology of the show, not the mythology, but the ideology of the show.
Yeah, and the way she delivers it is just fantastic.
Yeah, because it's like it's a good argument for why, like it's not enough to save the world. You have to be worthy of living in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so Mackenzie Porter. And then finally, well, that's the 4 nominations we have. We have 4 to pick from. I think I said 5. I have a 5th one written down to mention as an honourable. I want to mention Eliza Scanlon from Sharp Objects, who plays Amma, the younger sister. She is going to have a career. Her performance in that show is like... I'm trying to think of someone I can compare it to. It's like someone who is very good at doing the crazy eyes, but not in a goofy way, right? You're never sure what she's thinking or what she might do next. You never know if you should be, if you should be hoping that someone protects her or that someone should be protected from her. And it is a wonderfully diverse performance. And I think one of the things that I'd say about Sharp Objects, but Connor did not finish. He dropped out.
Yeah, I got maybe halfway through, and from what I recall of this actress, she was very good. I don't recall any standout ones. I assume they came later on, which makes sense. That's kind of how stories work. So I'm not gonna hold that against her. From what I saw, she was perfectly fine, if not very good. But I didn't get enough of her to really get a judgment.
The standout moments come later. The acting in Sharp Objects is the stuff that really stands out for me.
I couldn't, I had a lot of problems with that show. I don't recall ever criticizing the acting. Not that I remember.
The acting was on top form. It was great across the board, but Eliza stands out, and I feel like that is a young actress that is going to have a lot of big roles. She'll be pulling in Oscars before long, if that performance is anything to judge by. But yeah, so to pick between the 4 that we've put forward.
They're all very good, yet I still think this is an easy choice.
As do I, but I don't know. I hope, again, do we have the same easy choice?
Well, do you want me to go first again?
Yeah, I'm in charge. You go first.
Okay, well, I think it's Rhea Seehorn.
As do I. I hate to be boring, but Better Call Saul. It gives us the good actors. What can we say?
The acting is one of the things that carries that show into just how good it is. And she's one of the best on the show. She's often underrated as well, I think.
Yeah. Oh, she's phenomenal, and I think she's only gotten better, which is the thing.
Yeah.
And there's so much of this of her reacting to Jimmy and what he's doing, and she's went through a wonderful transformation of being like a kind of ashamed to be with him professionally, kind of softening on that, and then seeing what that leads to, and then coming back around this season where, she has to deal with the fact that she's the more successful one and how he feels about that. But then it comes kind of back round, and it's like
so many layers.
There was a point in this season where we were terrified that he was going to take down her with him, and that became the stakes for us. It was like
still not over that fear.
Still not over that fear, admittedly, yeah. But like, he might ruin her life and career along with his own, and that'll be disastrous. And we're at a point now where we're almost rooting for her more than him because she's the one who can be saved.
Yeah, definitely.
Jimmy's a lost cause.
And even without us knowing that from outside knowledge, we're finally at the point where, no, he's a lost cause.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Rhea Seehorn takes Best Supporting Actress for
That's two for Saul.
two for Saul. Saul's doing well. Saul's doing well. Um, all right, so we'll go to best music, best original score, as they say. Not source music. This is not about songs. This is not about tracks that they've taken from soundtrack, from bands and whatever. This is about original music. So the nominees for this are Westworld, Jawaldi. Is that what's his name?
Jawadi.
Jawadi. Roman Jawadi. Is that his name?
Ramin Djawadi. Yeah.
Ramin Djawadi, right. It's one of those things I can kind of visualize it in my head, the name, because I've seen it enough times. But so for Westworld, continuing a lot of the themes from season one. Several characters have their own themes. It was a big ensemble show, of course.
Yeah, some gorgeous evolutions of themes.
Yeah, some of the best stuff actually comes in. We're talking about the Native American episode. Some of the stuff towards the end of that, where it was finally sort of answering some things, some of the emotional music that was playing was really standout.
Yeah, and obviously Westworld is kind of famous for what it does with popular songs, and converts them for its use.
Yeah, which actually is kind of murky. Like, do we count that in the sense, because we said like no source music? That's kind of murky because it's like it's taking source music, but it's reorchestrating it and doing its own thing.
Yeah, and it's used in a way. I would say it counts in that source music is just here's a song, let's play it. This does something inventive with it. It plays it to the scene. It makes it into paint it black into a western. Or in this case, when we visit Shogun World and we do we take this Japan influenced music and go right, okay, paint it black, let's do it, and that really plays into the show and its core ideas. So I think it does go deep enough to
sure, yeah,
be eligible for me.
And it ties in. You got the player piano, which kind of ties it into what it's doing the whole time. It feels like it's almost like you've got the music of the fakeness of the Westworld, of the theme park, and that tends to be the covers to the either the Japanese version of the player piano. Yeah. But then when it becomes about real character, beats, and emotion, it's the actual score that comes in. It's the
which
violins,
is fantastic as well.
Better even one might.
Yeah. argue. Yeah, I think the song covers are more recognizable to most people because people already know these and they get a bit more talk because of that.
What I'm saying though is there's a thematic technique there almost of saying the fake world has the songs that have the phony versions, and then the real music that feels like it's more meaningful comes in when real definitely. Emotions are happening. So Westworld gets a shout. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're going to mention because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bear McCreary is actually one of my favourite TV composers. He did all of Battlestar Galactica, and he's been doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since season 1. And hurry up, you bastards, and release some music from seasons 3 onwards, because there's
some great themes.
There's a track from season 3, from the end of Mavith, or Mavith, whatever you pronounce it, that I want so badly. And the bastards have still not given me a version of it. I know
the feeling. There's some of those shows where I'm like, just you've given me the first 2 seasons, or worse is when they give you the season but don't include everything, and it's like, no, I want that piece.
Speaking of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because the soundtrack was for seasons 1 and 2, it doesn't have Sky's theme, the Quake theme.
That is atrocious.
I know, it's insane. It's like the most recognizable. Other than the main theme, it's the most recognizable piece of music, the cue of the whole thing. And it's not there. It is baffling to me. Bear, get on it.
Yeah.
His name's Bear. What a good name.
That's a good name.
Bear McCreary. So, no. He also did a God of War video game, just for...
Yeah, he was robbed of winning awards for that score as well.
Also, the Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie, which he did because he was a fan of the show. Which is it's just cool. He's making this low-budget movie, and this actual professional composer, hey, I'm a fan, can I do the score? He's like, yeah. Of course you can.
Yes.
Because the movie's okay it's not great, but the opening has like an orchestral version of the main Angry Video Game Nerd theme, and it's amazing. It's like, yes. Bear McCreary came in and just did this version of it. It's great.
I buy it.
Maniac is another good one. This is the Netflix show, limited series.
Yeah.
Alice had one of the more unique scores of the season. It's had a very unique sort of style and tone. There was a lot of percussion, a lot of I almost want to say I don't want to say it was quite like maracas, but there was a lot of
I think it often reminded me of American Beauty.
more upbeat, but yeah, I can see what you're saying.
In terms of the
Yeah,
tonal qualities of the rhythmic percussion
lot of
that was
plucking,
tuned.
lot of plucking
Yeah,
strings in there.
yeah,
Um, but when it got sweet, it got really sweet. In fact, one of the final track of the season that plays over the final scene, is one of my favorite pieces of music of the year. So now, Maniac had a really great score.
it
Um,
did. Yeah,
and the fourth and final one, which I intentionally left till last, um, is Titans. Now,
this is a objectively not a very good show. I kind of hate it for the most part.
I'm in the middle on it. I'm in the middle on it. Here's the thing with the music though, is that it has this negative point next to it because the main theme that plays when the title comes up is awful.
Yes.
Is garbage. But the rest of the score and the show has a lot of great synth. The final episode, which we saw some in Gotham City, the Gotham themes that were playing and the synth as we were coming out of the city were amazing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I likened it to how it made me the style of music for Blade Runner. You know, the original
Mm.
that Vangelis score with all the high stuff. You know, the gorgeous cityscape shots, right? I like it to that, but for this CD Gotham version,
Yeah, it was
and it's all the
darker. Yeah,
yeah, it's all this dark low end version, and it's like, but it stylistically really reminded me of that, and I'm like, no, this is really inventive stuff that it's
yeah.
doing for this here.
And there was little bits of synth throughout that was really like, sticking out to us. Um, Clint Mansell co-composed this with someone else.
Kevin Kiner, who
There you
I
go.
love, he did the work on Star Wars Rebels, which
Oh,
was
okay.
some genuinely phenomenal pieces in that a very some very un-Star Wars esque pieces as well. That I'm going to send you on later because I think
Oh, okay.
you'd appreciate it.
So, that's the options. I don't think Titans wins. I don't think we can give it to it.
No, I agree, but I wanted to mention it because I think it's the best part of that show.
That's fair. That's fair. Because of the main theme, I just have to get disqualified.
Yeah,
Like, I think if there's a piece of the music that you absolutely hate, I think you have
yeah,
to.
yeah. There's like 20 seconds that I hate,
Yes.
and then everything else is pretty damn good.
Unfortunately, they play it 3 times per episode because they do it over the DC logo at the start, then the Titans logo, and then the end credit starts with it.
And it does occasionally sneak into the score every so often. It's so bad.
But yeah, what are you feeling here?
This is really tight, actually.
Because for me, I'm kind of leaning between Maniac and Shield,
Okay.
possibly more towards Maniac, and I think part of it might be because Shield and Westworld are just they're evolving cues from
Yeah,
previous seasons.
we've loved those music for
Yeah.
however alternate amount of
Whereas
years.
Maniac to me felt like I loved the music throughout the whole show. One of my favorite parts of the show, and it felt genuinely unique. It reminds me a lot of not in terms of the style of the music, but one of the things I love about Unbreakable, the movie, which I love, is I feel like that score has a really distinct sound where you hear like a fraction of that, and you immediately know it's Unbreakable. It has a very unique sound. The way it uses its percussion in that, it's got that low
Yeah.
kind of thing going. Um, this feels like that to me, where it feels really distinct to me in my head, where I just I hear a little bit of the drums, and I'm like, it's that. It can't be anything else.
No, okay. I can't disagree with any of that. And like I said, they're very tight for me. So Maniac for the originality, I guess, the
Sure,
freshness.
yeah. Originality. I think it's upbeat. I think it's playful. I like
Yeah.
that about it. It feels playful, which goes into the characters where they're kind of erratic, but they're very likable. So
Yeah.
you know,
So Dan Roma, I believe, is the
Dan Roma.
composer for that.
Yeah, couldn't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Into Shield, very good. Westworld, very good. But my vote goes for Maniac. If I don't know if you're going to
No,
dispute that.
I'll give it to Maniac.
All right, there you go. Maniac, the Bebo for best music of 2018 on TV,
Yes. So Soul got two Bebos,
and
and
Maniac has one.
Maniac's on one.
Which will take us on to Best Cinematography. This is an award we like to do. We don't necessarily have Best Director, but we like Best Cinematography on TV, because we like to think of it as the shows as a whole, the seasons as a whole.
The style that the
Yeah.
show comes with.
And we call that cinematography because most shows have different directors for different episodes. It's just very hard to credit a director. Although one of these actually is a director who did the whole thing, so obviously we'll mention that when we get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have Better Call Saul. We have five nominees, by the way. But we have Better Call Saul, which has been consistent throughout the entire show. It's very methodical. It's paced immaculately.
Yeah, I think something this has over all the other shows that is just a part of the cinematography overall is the editing.
Mm.
This has the slickest editing on TV, bar none.
And it likes to accent details that are important for the storytelling. It's a very visually told story.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that there'll be times where Mike's just doing something, you're watching it unfold, and it's all down the cinematography to keep that interesting because those sequences can go 5 minutes, and and they're all just like that.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Next up, The Deuce. I think both this and Better Call Saul were nominated last year. At least one of those might have been as well. Deuce again is very confident directing. I thought this one had a few more standout kind of moments in the direction though. The opening shot of the season is a winner that follows Maggie Gyllenhaal out in the street and into a door, up through stairs, and then into a nightclub. And I'm sure there was maybe some trickery to make it all work, but it felt very genuine in terms of what it was doing. And
yeah, I think it's one of the most confidently directed things on TV. In that we mentioned now this year it did a few extra little flashier bits, but it doesn't usually feel the need to. It usually knows exactly what it's doing, and it just sits there.
Yeah, speaking of Gyllenhaal as well, there's a moment in the finale at a house where you can see someone up in a window and she's down below. I won't get into spoilers, but I'm just enough to remind you.
Yeah, the way it's framed.
Yeah. Just if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about, presumably. And it's framed beautifully, and the way it's timed, where the person's at the window, but by the time she looks up, the person's gone. It's just everything about it is filmed in just a really smart way. And there's just those touches mixed in throughout, just really confident, steady direction. Which I think is often like overlooked for the flashier stuff, but I feel like it's worth compliment. I think when it's good enough that you're almost not noticing it is worth complimenting as well, because that is a skill.
Yeah, definitely, and it never feels like TV directing.
No,
it's always a cut above that.
So no, Deuce. Next up, Homecoming, the Amazon show. Which I think is meant to be a limited series, but it's very hazy.
It was announced as a limited series, but so have other things been over the past year that were not in the end.
That is true. This is directed by Sam Esmail, all 10 episodes.
Yeah, it's that mad bastard.
They're all half-hour episodes. He took time off from Mr. Robot to come and direct this.
That's probably why we didn't get any Mr. Robot this year.
Probably. So this one's very interesting. This is definitely more flashy. I mean, I think Sam Esmail by his nature is a bit more flashy. Not in an arrogant way, though. In a way that's like, no, I want to be inventive. I want to use
experimental.
Yeah, experimental. He uses this really weird aspect ratio because the story's split into two like parts of the timeline, and everything in one end of the timeline is in this really thin aspect ratio.
Yeah, and throughout the show, you're like, okay, aspect ratio, separating the timelines. I get it. It's used to great effect for tension and to put you in a character mind space. But there's a moment, a couple of episodes from the end, where it finally clicks as to why they made this choice, this aspect ratio. It wasn't just to be quirky. It wasn't just because it looks cool. It was no. There is a narrative reason for this,
and not even just that. Like I feel like just the raw direction of like how he puts together the scenes, like how he shows the different parts of the facility, in the office.
We spoke a lot about how it felt like a De Palma sort of movie at times.
It did, yeah, it kind of did, and there's a scene like in episode 3 where it gets really scary for like 5 minutes. It turns into a proper thriller where you're thinking they're being followed and that something bad might happen. It is really fantastic direction.
It's intense direction, but it's incredible.
Yeah. And again, we're calling this cinematography because for most of these shows, it's
this is slightly different. Where we can pin down that no, one person directed all of this, so he gets all the credit.
Maybe we should call
Whereas
this direction and slash cinematography the
maybe we
award.
should, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So next up, Handmaid's Tale, also a very well directed show. It's kind of somewhere in between something like The Deuce and The Homecoming, where it's very confident, but there is a lot more flashier elements here or there about how it handles certain things. You'll get these delightful. There's one moment in this particular season 2, where you see all the handmaids are dressed in red, and they're all running from a building in slow motion from like, and it's like this bird's eye view, and it's like that is a really memorable visual
Yeah.
in your
Yeah,
head,
definitely.
and it plays with those kind of
The
things.
it excels in shot composition.
It absolutely does. The opening episode, the main character is taken to what turns out to be the sports stadium, but the whole thing's shot like really tight in her face, and you don't see it until she sees what's around her. You don't get to see where they are, and
Yeah.
then again, it uses the Boston Globe newspaper office to
Yeah.
again use a lot of really inventive
Then
little things.
there's stuff later on out in the snow where, and obviously
Mm.
the red really plays out, there's a sequence with a wolf that is
Yeah, in terms of
thrilling in direction.
visuals and direction, that episode is the standout probably the season.
Yeah.
It just has those stark visuals. So yeah. And then finally, Westworld. Kind of another
Yeah.
obvious contender in many ways. Has a lot of big sweeping shots.
Yeah.
This season had some more interesting elements where it had these more focused episodes. Episode 4 had a lot of repetition in its visuals to kind of tell the story.
It was
Where
very clever, little ticks that let you know what was going on.
yeah, whereas the Native American episode, that episode was a lot more sweeping, kind of panoramic, like.
Yeah, maybe a lot more what is typical for the show that you expected from
Yeah.
the first season. I remember when that first, it was obviously like at the time the most expensive show produced, and you're like, no, I see where the money's gone immediately,
Mm.
just in terms of the shots that they were getting,
Absolutely.
and that did not decline in quality whatsoever.
But in terms of picking a winner, is this one where you're like, no, there's an obvious pick here, or is this one where you're fighting?
I'm down to two actually.
Alright, go on then. What's your two?
I mean, I think one of them is the flashy option with Homecoming,
Mm-hmm.
and that one of them is a more understated thing, but I think that drives the show, and that's Better Call Saul.
Does Saul make it a hat trick?
Yeah,
Saul
I know
sweep?
it had a good year.
Um, I think Saul was phenomenally directed this year, but it wasn't necessarily any better or worse than the previous years, which is not a bad thing because
No, and
yeah,
I agree that it was on par with the
yeah,
previous years. That's just how good I think the direction's been throughout the whole show.
no, that's true. That's true. I think I want to give it a Homecoming though because of the experimentation, because it was doing weird things that I hadn't even considered that someone might try, and how it made use of that weird aspect ratio when it was using it. When it was like, okay, this doesn't feel like just like a stupid thing. It feels like, no, he's using that aspect ratio to tell the
It
story.
has a point, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people use aspect ratios just because, oh, this will look different,
Yeah,
right?
and I don't even just mean like when we get towards the end and that comes. I'm just in terms of like the actual filmmaking per
I
scene.
I can think of a shot like in an office cubicle
Yeah,
that is actively enhanced because of this aspect ratio.
the whole idea is to make everyone feel like closed off and trapped, like they're little in the world and like
Yeah.
they don't have the full picture kind of thing. And it's used very effectively. But and then you top it all off with various other things. There's a great episode late on this season where you're following two characters in the same building, but they don't interact most of the episode,
Yeah.
and it's kind of
And also just the ending shot of every episode
yeah.
is always just a touch, like it's that little sprinkle on the end of like, yeah, oh, just a little extra touch to top it off.
It's a stylistic thing that at the end of each episode of Homecoming, the credits play over entirely a shot that's just left running. So it'll end on like a pier, and the character who was there will just be there, like looking at his briefcase or something
Yeah.
for like 2 minutes while the credits play.
And it's a credit to the show that I watched that every
Yeah.
single time, every episode,
it has
even though
tone.
nothing ever happened, and I knew it wasn't going to.
Yeah, it has some tone. It has some eeriness to it because it feels like someone's always watching.
Yeah.
Us, namely. But
Yeah,
so
but
yeah.
it was so well executed. I'm happy to give it to
So
Homecoming.
the Bebo for best direction and cinematography. I'm kind of officially calling it both. Is going to Homecoming, from Sam Esmail. So that takes on to Best Actress. So big final two awards. We have some bonus things at the end to sort of for open discussion, but the final two awards are Best Actress and Actor, of course. So we'll start with Best Actress, and the nominees are Maggie Gyllenhaal for The Deuce. She was nominated last year. Um, it was between another nominee this year as well as Elizabeth Moss, and the reason why I'm bringing those two up together is because they were both definitely nominated last year, and I actually can't remember who we picked.
I'm fairly sure we gave it to Moss last year.
That sounds right. That sounds right. I can't really argue with that. But again, obviously the other three might, give us some competition here. But before we get to them, just between these two,
Already they're neck and neck.
yeah, it's very tough. Gyllenhaal, like, again, arguably she got even more stuff to do, and which is insane because she had a lot in season one that was great. I think season two added all this nuance of her because it was almost like season one was almost the obvious journey for a character. Season two, it's like, hey, just because you kind of succeeded at this thing does not mean it's all gravy from here. Like, you still have to deal with this, this, and this. Some things are actually the same. They just didn't look that they were the same. It's just a different disguise kind of thing.
Mm.
And to see her, the harsh moments of realization from her are phenomenal. The moments when she's with a son and she's trying to deal with how that plays out and how she should tell him what she does.
She has all these different personas depending on who she's interacting with. Although ultimately, they're still her. All of them are reflections of her. They're not completely different people.
Yeah, there's her taking charge and being a director where she feels the most powerful. There's her kind of begging for money from executives and whatnot.
Yeah,
and she feels very weak there. There's the other scene, it's all these things. Like we said, the season opened with her, and it showed her walking down a street and then getting into a club because the whole point was like she's much more powerful and she has fur over her shoulder. She isn't one of the prostitutes anymore. She is risen in the social structure. But a lot of the season is about learning how even up there's so much sexism, there's so much other bullshit to still deal with that. And her dealing with that, processing that, realizing that it's not an outright victory yet, that the struggle goes on, is a big part of the season, and her performance through all of it is. There's a moment in like episode 3 or 4 when she's like trying to get money for the movie. There's a moment of where she's something's requested of her, and she has this moment of like how she decides to whether or not she's going to do it, and it's not so much even what the choice is; it's how it's the thought process to how she gets to that choice, and clearly the mix of emotions as she goes through the stages of making that choice, and all of it's there. The performance, all of it.
Oh yeah. I think that one's particularly interesting example because that was certainly that we got different reads out of that.
That's true. We did. Yeah.
And I don't think either of us is necessarily right or wrong. I just think there was so much going on that it was possible to get that much out of it.
Yeah. And Elizabeth Moss, obviously for *Handmaid's Tale*, she is ridiculously good on that show.
Yeah, this nomination kind of goes without saying.
Yeah, ridiculously good. She goes through so much horror, so much like moments of hope, but then so much more horror.
Yeah.
There's moments in this season where she has more of a taste of freedom. There's moments in this season where she's treated the worst she's ever treated. Like, somehow in a show where she's essentially being raped over and over again, it still found a way in season 2 to one-up it. Which almost sounds like it's basically just misery porn at a certain point.
It sounds like it should be when you describe this show.
Yeah, it does, but
it's done with tact and skill. Obviously, we mention it in cinematography direction for a reason, because it's got the skill to pull it off.
Yeah, and the performance is a big part of that. And the character has to make some very interesting choices towards the end of the season, and I think it's to her credit that most of them come off very well because of her performance. There's maybe one that's a bit murky, but I don't think it's on her. I think the choice at the end of the season is so huge and hard to swallow that even her performance doesn't necessarily sell us on it right at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's something that could obviously, I think with time in season 3 and,
Yeah, once it settles into the groove of what that is, it might be something that we learn to just accept.
And even depending.
Possibly, yeah.
There's definitely possibilities there. It was definitely the biggest thing to get to, but she handles so much on that show. It's unreal. And the dynamics between her and like Serena Joy and the Commander have evolved so much, and like how she's willing to talk to them, what she
Yeah,
tries, what she chances.
even back and forth over this season.
Yeah.
The way, for the first few episodes, obviously she's not even interacting with them at all.
In fact, one of my favorite things about her character this season and the performance is how she reacts to Eden, and then how she continues to react to Eden, and then how she then feels about how she reacted to Eden once that story plays out, and
Yeah,
the almost the self evaluation she takes when she looks back at how she acted and how she maybe wasn't perfect in some way. Because I think it's very easy in this show that all the bad guys are like just outright villainous. It's like, do we dare question that every so often that some of the good characters do make mistakes and do fall into a trap of treating someone in a way that they shouldn't?
yeah, definitely.
And it asks those hard questions, and she pulls it off. So that's why she's there. So who else do we have? We have Emma Stone for Maniac.
Yeah, one of a small handful of reasons why that show works so well.
Yeah.
She carries so much of that show.
She really does. Her and the other lead, of course, which we'll get to possibly in the next award.
Yes, no spoilers.
But she very much like I feel like get into the show. You almost expect the roles to be reversed. You expected her to be more the outright heart, and she is part of the heart. Don't get me wrong, but you expected her to be more the heart in Jonah Hill.
She's quite cold
Yeah.
at first, and it takes some warming up to.
Yeah, but she has maybe the bigger arc because of that. But she's always kind of likable, even in spite of this, which I think is a clear testament to the performance.
Yeah, definitely, because it's very easy to have a performance like that, character like this, and to just come across like a bit of a dick, and I don't, and a little bit unlikable. But here she's charming through all of it, even through the things that you shouldn't like.
Yeah, and because of the premise of the show, she does a lot of different versions of the character because of because they're in these like AI worlds where they're playing different versions of themselves, and we get the housewife from New Jersey kind of
and then at one point you get the elf princess sort of character.
Yeah, and they all kind of bleed through her, but there's elements. It's just good stuff. So then we have Kieran Shipka for Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now she's maybe up against some stiff competition here, but I think she was very much worth noting from that show because the entire show does kind of rest on her shoulders.
I think she's probably the best part of the show as well.
And I think she actually carries that weight.
Yeah.
I think she is charming, and she makes the pulpy kind of cheesy. It's kind of an interesting tone Sabrina has because it's kind of a mix between pulp and actual dark horror, and it kind of balances them quite well. And I think she's a part of the reason for that because of the way she kind of grounds it. She is definitely the pulpiness of it. Now, obviously, getting to season 2, she's maybe kind of changing a little bit. That's part of her arc, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But she's handled it very well. And yeah, I think it would have been weird not to mention her in this conversation. And then next up we have Logan Browning from Dear White People, who was fantastic in season 1, fantastic in season 2 again. We get to see some different sides of Sam in season 2. We get to see her visit her home.
A lot more open this season.
Very much so, yeah. She has a great arc with Gabe, her ex-boyfriend. She has various things she's fighting through, and ultimately it kind of builds up to her questioning kind of like what she does, like how much is she doing it because she believes in it, and how much is she doing it because it's kind of the persona she's created, and it kind of like at what point does it become just kind of almost just the character I'm playing rather than the person I am.
Yeah.
And it kind of delves into that, and she gets to do a lot with that. So she's very, very good. There's a lot of great actors on that show. It's kind of a weird one where pretty much everyone else is supporting, so it's hard to kind of fit them all in.
Yeah, she's the only one who you could say is a lead, and even that, like, I'd say more so this season. In the first season, it's actually more even than you're led to believe from the promotional materials.
Yeah, this season, I think, after the first 4 or 5, didn't completely ditch the specific episodes per character, but it did feel like it went a bit more...
Yeah, it lent into her story a bit more than the first season did.
because we actually left the campus at one point because the story, because episode 8 was very much her story with Gabe, and then 9 was just her going home. I mean, she brought some friends with her, but
Yeah,
it was
but
her
it was all
episode.
about her still.
And even the finale was about her kind of being questioned by essentially, actually, literally the past version of her because Tessa Thompson played her in the movie.
Yes, but
um,
very different to the first season where the assumption going in was that she was the lead. Where
mm,
ultimately, I would have probably given her supporting role. I think everyone would have got a supporting role in that
yeah.
first season.
Wonderfully meta that, by the way. The fact that Tessa Thompson's kind of playing the older, disgruntled version of Sam, but she actually was Sam in the movie. It's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
it is smart.
So no, it's really good. I have to just. This is not one of the nominations because again, Connor didn't finish this, but I do have to mention Amy Adams for Sharp Objects.
I mean, I saw enough of this one to allow it.
Yeah. It's just phenomenal, right? I mean, cause I didn't want to mention these actresses and then not mention Amy Adams because everyone would be like, "Wait, what? You watched that show? You have to mention her." Yes, she's fantastic. And had that been up for nomination against these, I think she would be in the top 2 or 3 that we'd be talking about. Well, not she'd win would be another question, but I think she would definitely be in the upper conversation of it.
Mm.
So with that, I think we're actually just back to Moss and Gyllenhaal. I wanted to mention those other 3. I absolutely
Yeah,
did.
I think Emma Stone puts up a really stiff fight. I think she comes in a very close third.
I don't think it's close. I think she has third, but I don't think it's close.
I mean, fine, it's close for me.
I feel like Moss and Gyllenhaal are on just another level. And I would suggest we flip it from last year. I think Gyllenhaal wins this year because her character got even more interesting things to do. She got to showcase a wider range of more complex emotions. Moss was fantastic again.
But it was more of the same.
It was more of the same, and arguably that final kind of decision that the character makes maybe just puts a slight dent in it, just a slightest of dents.
Yeah,
And because of that, I think Gyllenhaal comes out on top.
yeah, I agree with that.
So the Bebo for Best Actress for 2018 in TV from Almost Cancelled is Maggie Gyllenhaal, which takes us on to Best Actor, which we actually have 4 options for. And we will start off with, no surprise, Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul.
Yes, can you imagine a version of this where the 2 supporting roles were won by this show, but the lead doesn't at least get a nomination?
Yes, and just for nicety's sake, the other nominees are Jonah Hill for Maniac, who surprised me with that show actually, because he is very sweet and he's kind of the opposite of every Jonah Hill character I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've seen him do a few things in the past couple of years where I'm like, okay, he's got more range than I ever gave him credit for. But this is still probably a standout role for me. Very good.
No, I think it is too. And I think what I like about Maniac a lot is that it is a twofer in every sense of the word, because the entire story is about how they kind of help each other, and that's kind of what makes the heart of it really tick. And Jonah Hill's is not a weak link there. They are equals in their,
Absolutely, yeah.
in their performances. Which if you'd asked me before that, can Jonah Hill hold his own against Emma Stone? I'd have said no. But
Yeah, probably not, but he did. So,
but he did.
Credit to him.
So there you go. James Franco for The Deuce. Again, had an interesting mix of things to deal with this season. Arguably more of an arc.
Yeah, again, he has the benefit of, we talk about how a lot of these characters is showing variety in what they're doing. He is playing 2 characters, so immediately that's more variety.
That's true. He's got 2 characters. I feel like Frankie though, the second character, he's more of just a fun comic relief character than someone who has an actual arc with proper chops.
I agree. He definitely has some big moments, and it's just there for Franco gets to stretch his legs and have fun with that role.
Yeah, what I like about Vincent as a character though, and what he gets to do this season, is that he very much gets to, like, I think the beats his character goes through are really interesting because there, again, one of the things I think I said about Moss and Handmaid's Tale is there's this self-reflection of who he is that kind of starts to weigh down on him. It's this not midlife crisis per se, but this midlife kind of like, am I who I want to be, and have I lost who I am?
What I would say is it's the end of a midlife crisis, because I think the show starts with him going into his midlife crisis.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
And this is him going, okay, midlife crisis over. By the end of the season is kind of where he's at, and but seeing him experience that entire crisis and come out the other side of that is a fascinating journey.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then finally, a very different role this one. But I think we have, and this is for season 2. Obviously, season 3 we're watching right now, but that launched on New Year's Day. We're talking about Neil Patrick Harris for Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Very different role, not a dramatic role, but
But the man is delightful.
he is stealing that scene every single time he's in it, with the possible exception of when a certain young, delightful, adorable child is on camera.
Which was not enough in that season.
No, well, that was only the first 2 episodes. He was the star for most of it, and credit to the other addition that season, Esme has also been fantastic. She's been really funny, a perfect companion for him. But Neil Patrick Harris is chewing scenery in the most intentional and deliberate way possible, and it's glorious.
He was killing it with the disguises. The Scatman detective,
Scatman and Evil Doctor were
the standouts
phenomenal.
for sure. Yeah, the menace that he can bring to this role as well, especially when he was the Evil Doctor.
Yeah.
When he's going through and hitting all the lights in the ceiling, that classic scenes.
Yeah, and the fact that he's about to cut into one of the kids at one point. He's about to.
Yeah. He it feels like such a light-hearted role. He's there, he's singing, he's in disguises, right?
Yeah.
But he can bring such a menace to this undercurrent to it at any moment.
I would probably sum it all up to what he brings to it as energy. He brings unlimited energy.
Yeah, it is a fantastic role for him. So I can barely imagine anyone else coming close to the performance he's giving on that show.
Who needs plutonium for your DeLorean? Just get Neil Patrick Harris to just stick his hand in the flux capacitor and just do his thing. So no, very different. I feel it was an obvious choice here.
I feel like most of our listeners can probably guess the obvious choice, given that we barely even spoke about them because we didn't really need to.
Well, I think Frank was good, but I think Gyllenhaal's the standout star of that show.
Yeah.
And while obviously Odenkirk, we picked 2 other actors from Saul. He holds his own with them. It's not like I come out of that show and go, the other 2 are the better, and he's the weakest link. No. I come out of that show and I'm like, no, he's still killing it. The sequences in the future, his performance in the final episode is
heartbreaking and exciting at the same time.
It's so layered. There was a layered performance in not even just actually, was that scene in the finale as well? No, it wasn't. That was the episode before. So there's two scenes I'm thinking of. There's the one where he's got a hearing to talk to the board to get his license back, and then there's the one in the finale itself where he's in the hearing, the other hearing. And both of those, especially the last one, are so layered because he does this thing where you think he's you go through this range of emotions where you think he's faking it as a character, and then you think it gets real. But then you're like, I'm not sure. Has he went too far? And
is he still faking it, or is it? Yeah, and you don't know, and you're questioning that, and it's that riding the line that only a phenomenal performance can give, because it just a touch either way, and the context of the scene is ruined. And
one of the things I said when we reviewed the finale was that every single this is the thing. I always make fun of Last Jedi for being a bad version of subverting your expectations. This scene over and over again subverts your expectations, and then into the final scene again subverts them. But every single time it subverts them, it gets more interesting than what it was before, and that's when it's a good subversion, because it makes you rethink what was just happening and makes it richer, because it's even there's more story, there's more drama, there's more character growth.
Some people would argue that The Last Jedi has the same effect.
They're all wrong, but in this, every single thing that gets unraveled in the performance, and it is all the performance, everything that gets unraveled makes it better. Everything goes, this makes the scene more interesting because this is what the character's doing instead of what I thought it was before. And then it keeps doing it, and it keeps doing it, and it leaves you off on this final moment. And he's solid throughout, but those last 2-3 episodes are next level.
It says a lot that even without those last couple, he probably would have won anyway.
Probably, but those last 3 episodes made it
Made it so
impossible.
it wasn't even close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I joked and said we'll talk about the others out of nice, to be nice, but like,
We kind of knew where this was going.
so Bob Odenkirk gets the Bebo for Best Actor on TV for 2018 from
Yeah,
us.
worth noting that Saul won Bebo's in all of the acting categories it was eligible for.
Yeah, and we talked about Seahorn maybe being in Best Actress, which would have been an interesting fight.
She would have been up there, like it would have been neck and neck with
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal and
it'd have been
sure.
her, Gyllenhaal, and Moss would have been the three we'd be discussing. I don't know if she'd have quite won in that fight.
I don't know. She might have done, but I don't know. I don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah, we didn't have to because we arranged the awards this way, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So just some bonus stuff. This is not stuff that's got nominees, or we're just going to like to have some general discussion things about mainly bad things in the year because we don't do the worst new shows anymore because we don't watch enough really to do like a list of those. So just generally, let's start with the worst shows we tried this year. It wasn't a ton of them. I mean, obviously, we tried Siren at Christmas. That was not good.
It's kind of terrible. Yeah.
Yes. But oh, the unpopular pick I'm going to say is a Little Drummer Girl. I hated that pilot, and I know
really did,
people love that show. People are putting it on their best of the year list. I hated that pilot, so I'm throwing that out there. And that was a taste thing. That I just don't like the spy stuff. I don't like the author who did the book. I hated Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy as well. Notably, both that show and that movie are both by directors I love their work from other things.
Yeah.
And I thought both the adaptations of this guy's work were just tedious. So,
It's not for you, is it?
Not for me, no. Go on, what you want to say.
Yeah, without a doubt, the single worst episode of TV I watched this year was the first episode of Deadly Class. It was atrocious. I hated it. It made me angry. I'm getting angry again already just thinking about it.
Why did you hate it? What do you dislike about it?
Oh, so many reasons. Every character is atrocious. Every character actively makes me hate them. It's not just that, oh, it's a first episode. I don't like this character yet. No. They went out of their way to make me despise them. I don't like the look of the show, the design. I think it looks kind of cheap.
And there's a problem with the look too much. I agree with not liking the characters, though. I think for me, I would sum it up a bit more succinctly and diplomatically, is I don't like the attitude of the characters and the tone. The sort of edginess that it's going for, I do not like.
Yes, I'm not being diplomatic for a show that I hate with that passion.
That's fine. I'm just trying to rein it in a little bit, not to alienate fans of Deadly Class. Yeah, we tried Night Flyers. That sucked.
Yeah,
It's a shame. Nice concepts, but they sucked.
kind of shitty.
Yeah, mostly mediocre acting, mediocre pacing, mediocre script. Joe, I never realised actually because he didn't have the goatee. Is the mysterious captain on that was actually Manchester Black, Ajala from Supergirl.
Okay, I don't remember him enough in Night. I mean, I remember
He showed up.
the
No,
character vaguely, but I mean,
once I realised it was him because I saw the name in the credits afterwards. After we reviewed it, I was like, oh yeah, I could a picture of the goatee on him, and I'm like, oh,
it's been too long now. He's very charismatic in Supergirl.
Oh yes, he's good in Supergirl. So I mean that was kind of that kind of takes us into other worst kind of things where also shows we dropped this year and worst full seasons we watched. Let's take full seasons first because I feel like that naturally goes on from worst shows we tried because it's mostly season ones naturally. Altered Carbon was not very good.
It wasn't, and we keep saying, oh, if we're quiet when the next season, I don't even know if it's gonna be if it's quiet if I want to do it anymore.
I know. Maybe if the trailer's really good, and Anthony Mackie, because he's the lead in the season 2, maybe it'll turn us around.
Yeah,
I wanted to love it so much.
The acting was not really the problem.
That's true. I wanted to love it so much. And I really like Deechin Lackman, or whatever you say her name. From Dollhouse. I like her a lot. And she was good. She was probably the best part in it.
She probably was. Didn't have a huge pile, did she?
No.
it was kind of disappointing all around. There was elements that early on that I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of like this.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we didn't hate it at first. It was just gradually over the course of the season it became clear that the pacing was never going to get better, that
It became just
the
tedious.
story got less and less interesting. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's definitely one. We watched all of season 1 of Castle Rock, which had some things we liked about it. It was one of those things where had the ending really stuck the landing, it might have been a bit more overall quite positive.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have been like, oh, this is great, but it would have been like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah,
Whereas,
it would have been like, it's maybe hitting a 7 out of 10 if it hit the landing. The ending though was such a whiff that it plummets into like a 5, maybe a
yeah,
4.
usually I'm not one to really go, oh, no, the ending ruined it all. It's out of how many episodes was that? Was it 13?
That was 10.
That 10, right? Okay. So out of 10 episodes, it was maybe the last half an hour that we really didn't like.
Mm.
And I'm not usually one to go, well, out of 10 hours, I like 9.5 of it, but that half an hour ruined it. But
I think the problem was is that it wasn't amazing the whole season.
yeah,
I genuinely enjoyed the pulpiness of it. I genuinely enjoyed some of what it was doing. It had that big emotional scene with Sissy Spacek, which was the best episode of the season, but it wasn't like as amazing as it felt like it should have been.
yeah. And I thought the pace was good. There was an episode towards the end of the season.
Mm.
They kind of just did something else for an episode. And you were kind of into it. You had a lot of fun with what the episode actually did.
Yeah, I liked the what it was doing. I mean, yeah, it was kind of a weird tangent, but
But
I liked what it was doing.
yeah, for me, I couldn't get over that. Why are we doing this now? And it really distracted me, and there's stuff like that, which just makes it a really uh, annoying season to think about.
It is a really annoying season. So we had that. What other full seasons did we have this year?
Yeah, I want to mention a season two,
Go on. Yeah.
Legion. Obviously, we were incredibly high on that first season. We probably talked about it a lot last year in the awards.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that season 2 has some really good episodes in it still.
It's got some good episodes and some good moments and some great ideas.
Yeah, I still remember the Behind Blue Eyes start of the fight of the final episode. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that came after 2 or 3 really mediocre episodes that really, just solidified that it was a weaker season.
Yeah, the season never really took off, but you forgive it at the start because okay, it's a slow build up. You're getting into it, right? And then it derailed and did something else for a few episodes, and Legion tended to be experimental at the best of times,
Yeah.
but this time I think it went too far for its own good in its structure, and it lost sight of what its story was supposed to be.
Yeah, like I said, there's still quite a few. I'd say there's 3 or 4 out of the there was 11 episodes, a weird number.
So there's an extra one, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
out of 11 episodes, I would say that there's 4 that I really liked,
Yeah,
something like that, and then some that are okay, and then there was some that just kind of felt like they were missing the mark or just spending its. And I remember there was an episode with was it? Rachel's the actress name. I always do this. He's love interest. I mean,
yeah, okay,
is it Rachel? Maybe it is Rachel.
yeah, Sid.
Sid, there you go. Yeah. She we have a sort of flashback in her head kind of episode for her. It was episode 3 or 4, and it felt like the sort of episode that should be a big deal. But the weird thing is that we already knew all the stuff that had happened to her. It was kind of just regurgitating it and letting us see it. And I felt like, had we not heard about all the bad things that happened to her as a kid, this would be a great episode. But because we knew pretty much all of it, it was kind of just going through the motions.
It was. It was like, oh, here's something to play with the structure of the episode just because we can.
Yeah. It just got maybe just a little bit up its own arse.
Yeah, but even when it was up its own arse, the episode with all the alternate world Davids.
No, I like that one. That was a really good one.
Which was fantastic and is probably as out there as that show got.
But what I'm saying is that it maybe just got a little too self-indulgent, maybe a little too often.
Yeah. And it had these sorts of episodes back to back as well.
Yeah.
Which definitely didn't help.
It hurt the pacing. Season 1 was definitely much stronger overall. I mean, I'm still hopeful that a season 3 could maybe.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm not coming back for this, but I am disappointed.
Yeah. And the ending was one of the things that was a bit weaker as well. Not the worst part, but definitely one of the weaker elements.
But as I said, disappointed. It disappointed enough that it's not even been really considered for anything in these awards.
Not really, no. Which is a shame. Which is a real shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other full seasons we watched that we didn't love. Definitely though, taking us on to shows that we dropped, either shows that we'd already been doing or shows that we did maybe half a season of and kind of
Yeah,
quit out of.
some of these are unfortunate casualties of time.
Yeah, it's not always necessarily a case of like, but that's the thing though. It's not a case of quality to a point, but at the same time, if it was one of the, if these were other shows that did have such a high quality that we loved that we're talking about in the awards, we'd find a way.
We would have done, yeah.
Things would move around. We'd move, heaven and earth to do it. We gave up on Jessica Jones season 2 about halfway through. We just hated watching it. It was the same with Punisher. So obviously that was the call when we said, you know what, no more Marvel Netflix.
Which turns out, I mean, we're not missing that much, are we?
I have heard good things about season 3 of Daredevil. That it's the best paced season of all the shows.
Oh yeah.
I've heard,
just meant in the long run.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it does great things with Bullseye and Kingpin, and I'm sure it might be quite good. But
no, here's the thing for me, the Marvel Netflix shows as a whole, because I think you do have to take them all as a whole. They've pissed away all the goodwill that they earned early on.
Kind of, and
I don't even want to go back to Daredevil, even though I've heard good things.
Specifically, though, even Daredevil itself, I thought season 2 pissed away a lot of goodwill after the first 4 episodes.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, we haven't been on the same side of that debate, which is probably on the more unpopular side.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say it. I think it may be more to be 50-50, actually.
Okay. It definitely didn't feel that way at the time.
It didn't, no. But we knew people who were big Marvel fans who were adamant that all that stuff with the hand and the stupid ninjas was good. And when you tried to criticize it, yeah, but ninjas, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, ninjas are cool.
Ninjas were shit in that.
But
the hand was the worst.
I love ninjas, but they weren't doing anything.
Speaking of Marvel, we actually did decide to drop out of Runaways. We actually watched the first episode and then made the call that we weren't continuing it, so we never even reviewed the first one. Part of it's a time thing, part of it's just the conversations maybe weren't as interesting as other shows.
Yeah, the episode was fine. I enjoyed it well enough.
Yeah.
There was nothing really wrong with it. I mean, I could nitpick, don't get me wrong, but overall.
I do wonder, though, if the decision to put it as a binge show with all the episodes at the same time, like, had it come out weekly again, would we have made that choice? I don't know if we would have. I think we might have, one a week's fine. Yeah, we'll do one a week.
Yeah, I think if there'd been a one and we'd gone, well, we've done one now, we'll talk about it and we'll fit it in next week. Maybe it wouldn't have been, we'll get to it the day it comes out every week, but we'd have got to it. With it being binge, it was like, right, here's 10 episodes, or no, I think was it more this time?
It was 13 this year.
Yeah. Here's 13 episodes that go away and work on that over the next 2 weeks.
And we're worth mentioning, we're in the middle of other shows that were binge shows as well. So
one of which was Travelers, which we've mentioned tonight as, we clearly like.
Which, so it became a priority thing, which is sometimes a thing. It was the same with Castlevania Season 2. We reviewed the first episode of Season 2. We watched episode 2, and we just never get back to it because we had so much other stuff happening.
Yeah, this isn't exclusive to just Season 2s that this happened to, Season 1s as well, of things that we kind of liked. We just didn't have the time. We didn't like enough to be like, okay, we need to do this. The First, another Hulu show. We were really positive on that first episode, and I think we both watched the second episode.
Yes, yeah, we did.
We were very busy at the time. We never found a place to squeeze it in.
It was right before you went on vacation, which was the other big thing.
Yeah, and ultimately it just kind of fell by the wayside, which is maybe a little bit of a shame because it was not bad.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things I'll mention is just an add-on to the cinematography and direction, because it's something only I watched. Is Haunting a Hill House has very good direction. I never thought to mention it at the time, but very well directed horror sequences. A couple of genuinely good jump scares. There's one about 2/3 through the season. I will not get more specific than that. That gets everyone. No one is not got by that jump scare.
I'm still frustrated that I haven't watched it. It's such an unfortunate case of timing, and because we do so much, and I work around this, I don't get time to watch TV for myself anymore.
And I can't mention the style because it's all directed by obviously Flanagan, who did the whole thing. Episode 6 is a series of very long takes. It's like maybe 5 shots the whole episode. Okay. And they actually designed the sets so that because the show's told in 2 timelines, they designed the sets so that a character could walk from the present day morgue, the this guy, one of the sister characters is a funeral director. Someone walks down the hall of her work into the hall of the mansion, and they actually built the sets like this, knowing they were going to do this in episode 6, so they could do
That's
this.
cool.
So it plays with all this stuff really well.
I would like to watch it. I just don't know when.
Well, if season 2 comes, if it happens, you'll have catch up homework.
If I can, yeah,
Yeah.
it depends if I can find the time for that.
On the upside, I mean, they usually announce at least a month in advance, so you'd have a month for 10 episodes.
Yeah, no
So,
guarantee, depending on what we're doing, but
yeah,
hopefully.
let's see how it goes. But yeah, so yeah, yeah. In terms of we tried Counterpart way back at the start of the year. Loved the
Was
concepts,
disappointing. It
but
was it was overly dry,
yeah,
and I feel like that's a show. If that had been a little bit better, J.K. Simmons would have been on that actor discussion.
yeah, maybe, yeah, I can see that. So that was kind of the year that was, outside
Yeah,
of our favourites, because we have 3 more award episodes to come. As we said earlier on, we have top 5 new shows of 2018, top 10 single episodes of 2018, and top 10 shows of 2018. That is coming out over the week. This is going up on Monday. You should have this, and then the next one should be Wednesday, and so on. And yeah, so look forward to the rest. Obviously, let us know your picks for these categories in the comments below and all that. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that over there. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. And yeah, for one of the first times of 2019, have you got any vanilla?